All right, hey, it's Paul from paulsaylor.com, and one of my good friends, okay, this video is about conspiracy theories. One of my really good friends believes in conspiracies, right? And obviously he doesn't think it's a conspiracy, right? If there's a theory and you think it's true, you know, obviously you don't think it's a conspiracy, but I think it's a conspiracy, and I'm making this video about conspiracy theories. And I looked online, I was trying to look online because I actually was interested myself, because I thought, well, you know, obviously when I was in high school or whatever, younger, I believed everything I read. So if there was an article about something, I thought, well, that's true, right? And then as I got older and at university and became an adult and traveled the world and learned languages and saw different governments, you know, obviously I believe in less and less of what's written or what's I'm supposed to believe, right? So I guess I want to say in this video is that conspiracy theories are very complicated. Because what is a conspiracy theory? You know, I thought about this, is right now China is creating a lot of history that's not really real. Like, you know, and it's like, what is a conspiracy? Is a conspiracy something where, let's say historically something happened, okay, and let's say that it's easy to cover up, right? So, like, I mean, just very simple, let's just say there's a murder, right? And so I killed somebody, right? And then there's a body there, but you know, I watched Dexter and everything, so I cleaned it up, used bleach and everything, and then I, you know, go throw the body in the ocean, right? Now, there was a murder, but you can't tell there was a murder, right? So, in a sense, in a small scale, that's kind of like a conspiracy, right? Because something happened that's very dark or not, you know, would cause a number of repercussions, and but I don't want anybody to know, so I would, you know, cover it up, and I would try to erase all evidence, right? And there's also conspiracies where, and that would be like a single person, in a sense, kind of a conspiracy, right? It's trying to get you to believe something that's not true. And you could have a government, let's say, that wanted to cover something up because not just one person, like a murder, but it could be like a war, or it could be you know, something that occurred in history, and a number of people, it's in their interest to cover something up, right? So I guess in this video I don't want to make fun of my friend, and I don't want to at the same time say that I believe everything, but I wanted to open up kind of the doors to what is a conspiracy and how much you know, I guess in your life, what have you seen to be true as you've gotten older, or you know, maybe learned something or had some new experiences where you could see it, something that you maybe when you're younger you would have thought was a conspiracy, but now you don't think it's a conspiracy. And then maybe what do you see as totally crazy? Okay, so I'll give you an example of something I think is just absolutely nuts. I read about, there's a group of people that believe in the chemtrails. So the chemtrails is the airplanes flying above your head, okay? And these airplanes apparently are dropping chemicals that will basically brainwash you, right? So there's a group of people that you can look online, they believe in chemtrails, chemical trails. And they think that obviously we are being controlled by things that we can't control, we can't stop, right? They're flying above us and they're letting this brainwashing liquid go into the system, and obviously we don't have a lot of choices about that. We have to breathe and everything, so we are being brainwashed, and we don't really realize that obviously we're being brainwashed by these chemicals, right? So I don't know how many people here believe in chemtrails, but I personally don't believe in chemtrails, and I would say that is an official conspiracy theory. So to me, a conspiracy theory would be something like, it's something, one is something big, okay, so it's not like a murder, it's not like you know, cheating on to get a gold medal or something for one person. It's more of a bigger thing. So conspiracy theory is like that. So I think my first kind of test for conspiracy theories, and I'd love to hear yours, I really do. I want to hear what your, you know, my friends, what is your, like, the definition of a conspiracy theory, and what conspiracy theories do you believe, right? That other people might call a conspiracy theory. But I would say a conspiracy theory that is doubtful for me is something that's very large, it's something that's very expensive to maintain, and it's something where there's no obvious financial benefit. So, you know, like, okay, back to the murder. So let's say somebody has a really good insurance policy and they have a lot of money in the house, right? Like a safe full of cash, right? And somebody murders them, and they have a big benefit in the insurance policy and the cash. So that would you know, police would say, oh, there's a probable cause or whatever, something that would motivate them to do that, right? So I think the same way about conspiracy theories is if there's like a big reason to do it. So for example, right now, China is trying to take the South China Sea, the 9 dotted line. And that's a huge thing right now in in all of Southeast Asia. Huge, huge thing. Northeast Asia too, with Japan, is, you know, this whole thing is that South China, they're saying that China's owned this forever, and so they own this, right? And so now they're discovering shipwrecks, which nobody knows if they're planted. But I could see that the South China Sea is very full of minerals, gas. It's the world's most busy channel. So for you know, for shipping, and anytime if there was a war or anything, it would be really, really important to control the South China Sea. So I would say China has a huge motivation to fabricate evidence or to exaggerate evidence to get control of that whole area, right? And so would anybody else. You know, they have a huge, there's an obvious motivation there. So I would say my eyes just beam in on that. I say, okay, financial motivation, safety motivation, security motivation, good chance we should look into this one and look very carefully at any new evidence that we find, right? Was it planted? Is it real? And so I guess, you know, I'm a bit of a China buff, and I talk about Chinese politics every day with my friends, and we're always, you know, sending things back and forth. And I think before I lived in China, I don't think I believed in many conspiracies at all, like no conspiracies almost. But after living in China and seeing how the media was manipulated, in my mind, in my opinion, and I have to say this about China, I'm the only person I know that admits, because I lived in China for about 10 years, and I was in China for, you know, many, many years before that, in and out, in and out. I'm the only person I know that admits freely that their mind has been influenced by the Chinese government. I will freely admit that, because I've seen brainwashing, I've seen the techniques, I've seen how it influences people, and everybody thinks it won't happen to them. Everybody thinks that. That's a common thing, is I'm way above that, way too smart for that. Never would happen to me. But I've seen issues where there has been a planned execution of a belief strategy to change people's belief, and I've seen that be successful. And I've seen my own mind be influenced by these government policies. You know, you get up every day, you read the newspaper, you talk to your friends, you see things on the TV, and eventually, and I think this is the sensitive part that nobody wants to talk about, is that we are all susceptible as human beings to believing things that aren't true, right? And, you know, conspiracies can be created, and we can believe them. Even intelligent people, and the friend that I'm talking about making this video for is a very intelligent, very successful person. So I won't say if it's a man or a woman or who it is, and don't try to guess, but conspiracies, when we met, here's what the conspiracy he was believing in when I met him last time was, she was thinking that basically we never went to the moon, right? Man never went to the moon. Moon landing was faked. And the most alarming one to me, because I often hear that one, but the other one was that what was it? Something was faked. Oh yeah, the Earth is flat. Okay, and all the maps are fake, and basically essentially this is really what he was telling me, is that there is a line, just like this building I'm standing on. There's an edge, and if you go over the edge, you'll fall off into space, right? And so that governments know this, and so they make it illegal to go to Antarctica, because if you go down there, you're going to see this edge, and you'll fall off, and then you won't believe anything else. And so essentially what he's saying is that all pilots are in on this. He said there's been no proof of the curvature of the Earth, and the Earth is flat. And so the spinning ball theory of the Earth is not true. Now, if I read this in a magazine or in a blog or whatever, I'd be laughing and what an idiot, But see, this is a friend of mine. It's a very intelligent person, and I was very, very alarmed to hear the flat Earth theory. At the same time, to be honest, I was quite excited because I like to figure things out. And if the Earth was flat, right? If his theory was correct, that's quite interesting. Because I have seen things in life where many people believe something and it turns out not to be true. Obviously, science, history of science, is just endless things that we believed that we found out facts later that they weren't true, and we obviously we believed there was a flat Earth before, and that wasn't a conspiracy, and then now there's been enough in most people's minds enough science to say that the Earth is round and it's spinning around, held in place by gravity. So this is a theory that most people believe now, and to not believe this theory is a conspiracy now. The reason why it's a conspiracy, obviously, is that so many people have to get together to cover this whole thing up, right? So I want to know your honest opinion, and I want to get your honest, what do you think about this stuff? I looked online for a video about this, and it's like nobody talks about it, because either if you believe in conspiracy theories, then you don't think they're conspiracies, right? You think they're real, right? You think that the Earth is flat, or you think we didn't go to the moon. You think that the chemtrails are controlling our minds. Or I remember when I was growing up, the big thing when I went to big cities. I grew up in a beach town. I go to big cities, and there'd be a guy, literally, there'd be a guy sitting down with his sign, and he had an aluminum hat, made of foil, and he was fending off. The reason why I chose this here, because this is satellites. Because the flat Earth people don't believe in satellites. This is all fake. This here in a flat Earth mind is not going to a satellite. It's going to another thing on Earth. There's some kind of a transmitter on the Earth, and it's transmitting to these different satellite dishes, right? So that's kind of the theory there. And I remember seeing these guys with their their aluminum hats, and I thought, man, this guy's totally crazy, But and as I remember the Matrix movie I think that was kind of, in my mind, was like a watershed for conspiracy theories, because suddenly, what was reality? And I think, there was a lot of murders based on the movie, The Matrix, because people believed that we were living in a software program, and if they shot somebody, it wasn't really killing them, because we're all in software program, and if you shoot somebody, they're not gonna die. It's just we're all digital bits. And what is reality? And I've seen a lot of people that I don't really like so much, like Deepak Chopra, who talks about quantum physics a lot, but he doesn't know much about quantum physics. And I'm also not an expert on quantum physics, but I know one thing is that there's things called spooky actions, and things that there's all these very hard to believe features or aspects. Things don't act the same way at a very small size as they do at a big size, and it's very surprising, and it's something that's hard to believe when you first read them. It's no, it can't be possible that when you put the particle down one tube, that two come out, one comes out on a parallel tube, you're putting in one and you're getting out two. And these very hard to believe, or difficult to fathom, or even just almost impossible to guess kind of physical aspects of our universe give fodder to these conspiracy theories. Because what happens is you hear that that there's this quantum physics, and it's hard to believe, and then you say, well, some guru will use that as kind of his fuel for his program. He'll say, look, quantum physics, you put, there's all these weird things and spooky actions, and because of that, you can get anything you want. You can. He takes this kind of unusual scientific data, and then he extrapolates it to money or something, right? Or love. You can get love. You just think, think about it, or you put in some love and other love shows up, and he'll use quantum physics as kind of an example that will allow him to rip you off. Okay, basically, right? So there's a great book, it's How to Think, and I forget the author, but I read it recently. It was a really, really great book. I'll put the book in the link below. I'm not sure exactly that was the name, but it was basically, he went through so many conspiracies, and it was a really great book. It was a really, really fantastic book. And I'm not repeating the ideas. It's totally worthwhile to read that book. But how do we think? How do we understand? You know, obviously, like if conspiracy theories were true, essentially the U.S. government would just be basically one huge conspiracy, right? Like the CIA basically has two divisions, right? One is like, you know, human dissection, and the other one is like getting people addicted to crack in inner cities, right? That's you join the CIA and you join one of these two divisions of the CIA, right? You know, there's so many conspiracy theories out there, and when your loved one believes in one, and when you yourself doubt something that everybody else believes in, where do you go for, you know, do you cover it up? You know, I think it's what a lot of people do when they find something out. They say, you know, this is what my friend said. He said, he was very shy to tell me this stuff because he said, if I tell you this, you're gonna think I'm crazy, you know? And I was like, oh, no, please. And then now I'm taking this video, right? But, you know, it's a serious thing. It's a very serious thing. What happens when you find out something that is not believed by the majority of people? Or, you know, maybe you see something, right? And then it causes you to change your belief forever. Do you hide it away? Do you talk about it? Do you talk to your loved ones? And when you hear somebody talking about something that you're not really doesn't make sense to you, what do? You know, for me, I know the conspiracy theories that I believe in, right? Supposedly conspiracy theories, and a lot of my proof would be archaeological proof, or, you know, some kind of factual proof. So if there's a skull found somewhere, and it's a certain ethnic race, and it's dated to a certain age, I'll tend to believe that because that's scientific data, right? And I'll say, oh, those people probably came before those people, right? Whereas other people will say it's all faked. You know, you can't date things. You know, it's all. I think some people really think that almost everything is a conspiracy. Really, it's like it's all a conspiracy. Like, what is not a conspiracy in some people's mind? The cell phone is frying your brain. Wi-Fi is ruining your life. I have a friend who's against Wi-Fi towers. They don't want Wi-Fi towers. But there's been no obviously proof. Now, of course, we have to take all these things seriously, because when these new technologies come up, what if they were frying your brain, right? That would be very bad, right? And it would be something you couldn't control. And maybe they are. So, you know, kudos to my friend if this is what they figure out. But I found a lot of it is just fear. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of a new technology. But is it just fear? Is it something else? Could some theories be mental illness? Is it that, with an intelligent friend who believes a conspiracy? Have you ever had a conspiracy theory that you believed for many years and then later thought it was crazy? Just you yourself? You know, something like, have you ever had that? I'm trying to think if I've ever had a conspiracy theory that I believed, but later I found out wasn't true. Oh yeah, I did. Actually, I did. Yeah. I went to Japan in the early 1990s, like late 80s, 90s. I was in Japan, and that time, the Japanese companies were taking over the world. And I remember the exact moment, because it was a warm day, and I was in my house, and tatami mats and everything. I had this really small place in Nakano in downtown Tokyo, and I was convinced that the Japanese it was a huge conspiracy to take down the American electronics companies and the car companies, and like they were all working together, and nobody could compete with them because they were so powerful. They had all the power, they had all the money, and I was, you know, I never thought it was a conspiracy. I would read all these books. There was a lot of books back then about this. You know, in fact, I knew a guy, I worked for a guy, Tom Nevin, who wrote a couple of them, And now they're a total joke, but at the time, man, there was a lot of people who believed in them. And Japanese bookstores were full of books about this kind of stuff. You know, the Japanese brain being superior to every other brain, and there was these kind of physical conspiracy. There was, or I don't know if you call it a conspiracy, but theories. And there was also these kind of conspiracies that MITI, the Japanese division of the government that controlled Ministry of Information and Technology, they basically controlled everything, and they had all the money and all the power. And we were just little ants to be, you know, crushed. You know, and there was fear of white slavery, and all kinds of stuff was going on. People were smashing Japanese cars, you know, and I got swept up in it because I remember one time I was talking to my parents, and I was talking on the phone, and I was walking around my apartment. I was telling them my theory about the Japanese companies and the government and this and that. And then I remember very clearly my dad suddenly said, you know, if you hate it so much there, you know, why don't you come home? And I loved it there. I didn't hate it at all. So, but it kind of woke me up. I thought, oh my, I could see myself from the outside. I realized I was ranting, and I was starting to lose it over this Japanese taking over the world conspiracy. That's the only one I can remember believing in. I'm sure there's more. Definitely, I'm not saying I'm not above believing in conspiracy, but well, how about you? What's your experience? You have some now that you want to get rid of, you know, that you believe in something that you know is not true, or did you know it wasn't true, or did you know you were losing it? You know, I honestly had no idea I was losing it, but looking back, I was reading book after book after book after book. I read Sony Akio Morita's book, The Japan That Can Say No, that was a very racist book, talking about, and at the same time it had some good, what do you call it, like common sense things too, because Japan had said yes to everything the US did, and you know, they'd been a colony, and then now they were growing out, getting very powerful, and Japan can say no. So there was also truth in that book. But either way, I had read all these books, and I was starting to lose it. And I remember after 9/11, I started to get into, oh yeah, that's another thing. My friend didn't believe in 9/11. He said that's totally, obviously, was the US government. There's no evidence of airplanes, and you know, an airplane flies in a building, and you know, steel heats at 2,700 degrees, and the air jet fuel is only 1,100 degrees. Now this has been completely disproven to me by a recent YouTube video of a guy who works with metal, and he heats it up to the same temperature with the jet fuel, and it bends like crazy. It doesn't melt into liquid, but it just completely has no strength anymore. So I guess I look at conspiracies with an open mind, and I enjoy them, I think, and I enjoy thinking about them, and I also enjoy finding out I'm wrong, you know, and like I kind of believe something, and then I realize later that it wasn't a conspiracy, or it wasn't true. And I personally think that the act of going through this whole process is good for my mind. You know, it's good for me to consider that this could be true, right? And but it's also good for me to realize when I'm losing it. And usually it's my friends that tell me when I'm losing it. And I'm going to send this video to my friend, and I hope that this video could be possibly a watershed moment where he could see himself from the outside. You know, I saw myself, you know, I was ranting and raving, you know, I'm sweating, and I'm walking on the phone, and I'm just walking back and forth to my apartment, ranting and raving about the Japanese. And, you know, the Japanese were just happy people doing their thing, really. You know, they were very excited about coming out of poverty, and the country had risen. And, you know, looking back, it was kind of the peak of Japan, and now I'm sad to see where Japan has gone since then. So, you know, I long for those old days when Japan was on top. That was a great time in my life, and it was a great time in Japan. So there we go, conspiracy theories. I'd love to hear what you think, and thank you very much for watching. And meanwhile, I'll just let my brain be fried by this radio waves right here. Thanks for watching.